Hello, Miami. This is 305 Sports Now, your home podcast and channel for all things Miami sports related. I am Will, and today's going to be a pretty interesting episode because I wanted to go over a topic that really a lot of people aren't talking about. It's been dabbled about, as far as who was a better coach and so on in the online world and social media like Facebook, Instagram, etc. But actually, I would say Facebook and Twitter, to be frank with you. But one of the things I want to talk but not really talked about, as far as the podcasting world goes, at least not anything I've heard. The one thing I wanted to address is all what's going on between, Mario Cristobal in general. The reason why I decided to go with an episode like this in which I speak about should the Miami Hurricanes have kept Manny Diaz and not taken the plunge and going all in on Mario Cristobal is because I was listening to Hockman and Crowder with Solana a couple days ago, and they were going over the first 21 games of the last three coaches, and they went over Mark Richt, who was 17-4, and then they went over Manny Diaz, who was, I believe, 14-7 in 21 games, and now Mario Cristobal is 11-10. That's about the same number as Al Golden and I believe Randy Shannon the first 21 games. So I just wanted to address a few things about Manny Diaz. I'm going to give you my perspective on Coach Diaz, and I want to give you my perspective on what I think is going on, with Mario. But I want to talk a little bit about Coach Diaz, okay? Coach Diaz in general took the job in 2019 after Mark Richt resigns. He takes a job at Temple. We all know the history. And he takes over the team. And not going to lie, he had some good things to say, especially since he's a young coach and he wanted to bring a modern touch to the offense in particular. And it didn't quite work out his first season. He finished at 6-7. A good victory against Florida State, 27-10 over in Doak. But they had the infamous loss to FIU, and then they had the shutout loss 14-0 against Louisiana Tech in a bowl game. Louisiana Tech is a team that Miami would normally handle if they had, a pretty semi-decent team. Then you go over to 2020, Dan Enos is gone. You introduce the world to Rhett Lashley. Rhett Lashley has the offense humming. They average about 32 points a game, if I'm not mistaken, with Rhett Lashley's first year, 32-34. They bring in De'Aaron King from the transfer portal, and he pretty much balls out. All right, they had, again, they finished 8-3. They had victories against Louisville, was ranked 18th at the time. FSU, they beat NC State in a thriller, right, as well. De'Aaron King balls out, but again, they lose in a very critical game, which could have led to led them to play for the Coastal Championship to North Carolina that ran for like 600 yards against them at home. They get blown out by a score of 62-26. The following year is year two of Rhett Lashley. De'Aaron King had an injury in that bowl game, didn't quite heal, yet was trotted out there, and they struggled. They struggled against Appalachian State. They get blown out by Alabama, which is nothing to be ashamed about. Alabama beats up a lot of teams, and they lose a tough one to Michigan State. Now, what gets interesting is that finally, De'Aaron King sits down, and then they bring in Tyler Van Dyke, and Tyler Van Dyke flat out balls. Okay, let's be honest with you. He balls out. He had like 4 games or 5 games of like 300 plus yards or more. The up-tempo offense that Rhett Lashley runs, where you really don't have to think too much, is very suited to the talents of Tyler Van Dyke for the time. Also, it helps that Mike Harley and Charleston Rambo were also on that team. They're about 60% of the wide receiving production for Tyler Van Dyke, and he just flat out balls. They lose a heartbreaker to UVA, a heartbreaker to UNC, and a heartbreaker to Florida State. The Florida State game was quite interesting because I believe it was 3rd and 18 or something like that. They were they needed one more. It was 4th and 18. I really don't remember. If you want to correct me, audience, go right ahead. And they don't get to stop, right? They get the first down. One of the biggest criticisms Diaz gets is that Diaz does not blitz Jordan Travis. Blitzing and pressure was what was rattling Jordan during the game. They play coverage. He's able to beat the coverage because the 3-man rush does not get there in time. So they do that, and in the end, they let go of Manny Diaz, and they bring in Mario Cristobal. Now, let's go back a bit more about Coach Diaz. Again, Coach Diaz's specialty and why he was there was because of the defense, why he was hired. His defense was phenomenal when he was with Mark Richt. As a matter of fact, his first season as the head coach, the offense was struggled. I believe the Miami Hurricanes defense was the top 15 defense in the NCAA, but other struggles continued. And unfortunately, Manny Diaz could just not win the big games. And eventually recruiting suffered, all right, as well. Obviously, to be fair to Coach Diaz in his third season, the rumors of him being fired were all over the place. So I think that really did strongly affect recruiting. The kids that he was able to get were kids that were going to be Canes regardless. Like, for example, Wesley Bassane. Wesley Bassane wanted to be a Miami Hurricane, period. Okay. He loved that team. Still loves the team, and he's playing for the football team. So he was going to be a Cane, period. So that's it. But they were ranked 60th in the country, and the rumors of him being fired were really circulating, and I believe that affected recruiting. But beforehand, Diaz would post at least a top 15 class. Okay, he never had these beast blue chippers like Mario Cristobal's bringing in collectively, but he had always got the 1 or 2 5-stars. While he was there, like he picked up Leonard Taylor, who's a 5-star out of Palmetto, and he picks up James Williams, who's a 5-star out of American Heritage. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say as far as that goes. And on top of that, love him or hate him at the moment, Tyler Van Dyke was the number 1 player in the state of Connecticut. Okay, so they bring him in as well. Silly. So Diaz struggles. He can't win the big games. His defenses aren't doing well. They're getting beat on blitzes. They're not winning games. They're not winning bowl games. So that's something that the fan base was getting pissed off about. Boosters got pissed off about. So then the University of Miami decides to pretty much invest in Mario Cristobal. Okay. Now I want to be very honest, and I'm going to give you my perspective, what I think towards the end. But when the rumors of Manny Diaz being fired, you can go back to when I was on audio only in the beginning. If you want to go over to Spotify or Apple or Google, I did not like the idea of letting go of Manny Diaz in his third season, especially when the games he lost were under 10 points. I believe the UVA game, the UNC game, and the Florida State game, it was less than 8 points combined that Diaz loses that game. Manny Diaz could have had a 10-win season if it wasn't for a missed field goal, if it wasn't for a tip ball in the UNC game, or if it wasn't for a bad call on defense, against Florida State. Okay, so they could have easily been 10-2. They probably would have won the the ACC that year, because it was a weak year for the ACC, and maybe gone to a different bowl game, right, that year as well. They didn't go to the bowl game because of COVID issues, I believe, on their side of the ball. Okay, the Miami couldn't get enough players on the field, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'm talking straight off the cuff here, so if you want to correct me, go right ahead. But bottom line is, though, that he could have easily won 10 games. Okay, to let him go, they bring in Mario Cristobal. To be fair, Mario Cristobal had been successful at FIU, gave him the first 4-star athlete, gave him the first bowl victory. Then he goes to Oregon as well, and he has a couple 10-win seasons, a couple Pac-12 titles, including a Rose Bowl. And guys are getting drafted, in high rounds going to the NFL, i.e. Penei Sewell, and also, of course, Justin Herbert, who was a top 5 pick. So these are our top 10 pick. So these are things that we're looking at, as far as Mario Cristobal goes, as far as why he was hired. Local guy, loves the university, won a couple championships here, has been successful record-wise and championship-wise at the collegiate level. So you're bringing now a guy with more experience, you pay him a lot of money, and so on. But what happens as well? Coach Cristobal is struggling, okay? A 5-7 season. He hires a coaching staff that didn't mesh well, okay, at all. They finished 5-7, a team that almost won 10 games the year before. There's a lot of turnover in the offseason. I believe it was it was a big amount of turnover. A lot of guys left, and you bring in some new guys in the transfer portal, but you recruit really well. All right. Mario Cristobal had what my opinion is, a top 5 recruiting class, even though they're ranked 7th on 247 Sports. You're bringing 2 beast offensive linemen in Maui Noa and Okunola as well. You're bringing guys like Malik Bryant. You're bringing guys like Popo Aguirre. You're bringing Ruben Bain. You're bringing Jaden Wayne, as well. So you're bringing guys that are absolute beasts, okay? Currently, at the moment, the team rests at 6-3. A disastrous management of the game against Georgia Tech, criticism of clock management as well, and now losing to NC State and still riding with Tyler Van Dyke, who's been struggling since they came back from the bye, has really turned the fan base on Mario Cristobal. And both he and in some cases Tyler Van Dyke or Shannon Dawson are getting blamed for what's going on. Okay. And of course, the main thing is that they still have TVD out there. So questions asked, should we have gotten Lane Kiffin? Should we have let go Manny Diaz? So these are all things we're saying. So I just gave you the record of Manny Diaz in comparison with Mario Cristobal. 21 games in, Mario 11-10, Manny Diaz 14-7. Okay. But I do want to say this as far as my perspective on what I think should go. Again, I didn't think Manny Diaz should have been fired. Okay. I didn't think he should have been fired. I thought he was given a raw deal by the university. He should have gotten a fourth season to see what he could do with his roster and see if they take the next leap. Since although they won 8 games the year prior, won 7 games the year after that, it could have easily won 10 games. Okay. The team never quit on Diaz despite the rumors of him going to be ousted at the end of the season. But I will say this. I was happy with the hire of Mario Cristobal. Mario was my 1A. Lane Kiffin was my 1B. Okay, I also like Lane Kiffin, when the rumors were circulating as well. And although I've been disappointed in the performance of this football team, as well, and some of the decisions by Coach Cristobal himself, especially the Georgia Tech game, all right? Common sense, you take a knee. Sorry to tell you, there's no winning there's no toughness in trying to run 6 yards and then you fall and then you end up losing that way. This team should easily be 7-2, not 6-3, and still being competitive for at least second place in the ACC. To have ACC, opportunity to win a championship. So, but that being said, blunders aside, in general, I will be very frank with you when I say this. There was a lot of issues with Manny Diaz as far as from what I've heard, as far as discipline goes. A lot of the recruits that we have gotten today, I don't think would have signed with the Miami Hurricanes. For example, Raul Aguirre would have been in Alabama, and I do think Malik Bryant would have been a Gator. I don't know that, but I speculate that and have a strong belief that that would have been the case. Okay, I don't think we get Maui Noah. I think Maui Noah goes probably somewhere on the West Coast. I don't think we get Okunola. I think probably Florida gets that offensive lineman either. So what I'm trying to say is like the one thing that although Manny did okay, he didn't have a potential top 10 recruiting class every season like what we're seeing now with Cristobal as well. Right now, currently with Mario, we sit in the top 10, especially with the acquisition of Nikar, okay, and possibly being the mix for other players as well or potential flips in general. Just saying, okay. But the bottom line is that the talent is being stacked. All right. So what I'm trying to say is that although I'm not happy with what's going on with the team, I do see the big picture, and I do see a light at the end of the tunnel. I do think eventually we're going to see Oregon Mario in the sense that we will have a 10-win season, and I do speculate that we will eventually be competitive for the ACC. All right, even with or without Florida State in the ACC. Or Clemson either. Okay. So I do believe that it's going to happen. The players that we have now as freshmen are absolute football players. Okay. Look at Ruben Bain. That is a football player. Look at Francis Marinoa. That is a football player. Okay. These guys want to play football. And they came here understanding that they're going to be part of a process of rebuilding. Okay, like Raul Aguirre said, Popo said, we have dogs in our team. All right, we have dogs. We have warriors on this team. There's no prima donnas. Is what I'm trying to say. So that's what I mean by we have good football players. This team will get better. Look at from year 1 to year 2. You can make a case. Yes, we're 6-3. We don't know what's going to happen against Florida State or the other football teams we face. So let's look at the record right now. Miami has improved from last season. You can't deny that. Miami has a much better defense, has had much better linebacker play. One of the criticisms of Manny Diaz was the inability to tackle well. This team is tackling well. All right, they're forcing turnovers as well. They're pressuring the quarterback. On offense, it's been putrid the last couple weeks, but the offensive line is still really good. Really good. Our running game is much improved as well. And if you collectively put the season together, our wide receiving core is actually getting some separation. They're playing better. Jacoby George, Restrepo, Young, etc. My criticisms: we need to use tight ends and running backs more in a much more efficient passing game. But that's a whole other story. I do think the offense will improve next season as well with a new signal caller. I don't think Tyler Van Dyke will be back. Okay, I don't think he should be benched against Florida State. I'm in the minority in this category. And I understand you want to do something better, but I do believe that you're still sort of playing for something. You're playing for a better bowl seating. All right, that's number one, whatever that might be. You're playing for a better bowl game. And number two, you're planning to keep your recruits as well. All right. You plan to keep recruits. If you go into a dumpster fire where you're constantly losing, you may lose some recruits, especially in the side of the ball where you need, which is on the offense. Right. So I really don't want to see that happen. I do believe, though, in this game against Florida State, I do believe that if Miami is down with Van Dyke starting in the game, maybe let's say they're down 14-3, then I think you inject an Emory Williams and a Ja'Cory Brown package. I still think you should have a Ja'Cory Brown package with Tyler Van Dyke, right, to kind of like throw a wrinkle at Florida State, especially in short yardage or goal line situations. But I do believe firmly that Tyler should start. Give him a chance, all right? I know I'm a patient guy. Just give him a chance. If he messes up, all right, just yank him and then put in the young kid, and that's it. And then you play for the future, and you never replace Tyler Van Dyke again. That's all I'm gonna say. Again, if you're gonna do that, you might as well start Emory Williams last week against NC State, a team with not such a good offense. You get the kids' feet wet on the road in a conference game as well. 1 or 2 touchdowns wins you the game. You go up against Florida State, and then let's see how much. Let's see how good you really are. You're facing a top 4 opponent in the country. But that being said, I do see the light at the end of the tunnel. I do think Mario Cristobal at the moment is the right guy for this program. Number one, he loves the school. He loves the program. He's not going anywhere because he really wants to see the Miami Hurricanes be successful. He's not going anywhere. He recruits really well. And I do think eventually his recruiting will cash in. All you need is a quarterback. That's really all you need. All this football team really needs is a quarterback that can see the field no matter what system he's in, right? See the field and execute, and you are set, right? You are absolutely set. Why are we so good the first 4 games? Why are we so good against A&M? Because Tyler Van Dyke was Tyler Van Dimes, and the defense did its job, okay? And if you can get Tyler Van Dyke to be back to that, or have a quarterback that's consistently like that and doesn't fold, when he or freak out or make mistakes when it's zone defense, Miami is absolutely set. And I firmly believe that. Listen, when I was a teenager, I wanted Butch Davis fired. Okay, I wanted Butch Davis fired. We lost to East Carolina. Okay, we lost to East Carolina. We got creamed by Florida State 47-0, right, as well. I was not a fan for a good couple of years, all right? I was not a fan for a while, but guess what? Eventually, Butch Davis put on that field with limited resources because of probation, the 2001 football team that would go on to win a national championship and be, at this moment, sorry, there's no dispute, the greatest college football team of all time. Greatest college football team of all time. I'm not saying Mario is going to replicate what Butch did. It's a different game. All right, right now you're recruiting now every season to keep your players even on the roster because of the transfer portal, and NIL now plays a very key role. But the bottom line is I firmly believe that Mario will make this team better. The defense, lockstep, a thousand years light ahead of the offense in terms of being better. But there have been improvements on offense in details at the micro level that we could obviously see as far as the running game and the offensive line go as well. The defense, the front 7, nasty, okay, as well, okay. Some work in the secondary, I understand that, but we still got some ballers at corner that make plays when they have the opportunity to make plays. All right, so again, should we keep Manny Diaz? I don't think so. I don't think Manny Diaz would long term been the solution. I think he was way over his head in terms of this job. It's a lot of pressure being a Miami Hurricane head coach in general. I think Mario's the right guy for the job. I think the university did the right thing, and all we have to do is just win and get the right guys, on the roster to do it. And I think at the moment we're heading in that direction. Remember, Mike Norvell was 3-6 and 5-7 his first 2 years. People thought that it was going to be Prime's job after year 3. He turned that roster around 9-3. Now they're potentially playing for national championship. All right, I think Mario could do the same. He did it at Oregon. He did it at FIU. I think he can do it here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you heard, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to 5 Sports Now. Once again, I'm Will. Stay safe. God bless. See you soon. Go Canes and beat FSU, guys. Bye-bye. All about the U. Peace. Bye-bye.